Erickson Chelsea. Erickson Chelsea.
Hey, Chels. Look, you did, and now I've just got a minute because I have to get on an EDA meeting. So my question for you was, um,
Good evening, Jenny. You're on mute, but can you hear me okay?
Good evening. Yes, I can.
Perfect.
Yep.
How are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm good, thanks.
Are you working from home every day or do you go in?
So I worked from home every day, even pre-COVID,
Oh,
when I wasn't traveling. Now I'm not traveling, so yes, working from home every day. I miss being out.
well, as part of my work, I am out, which is nice. It's
Yes.
It hasn't felt that much different because I can work from home or I can go into work and wear a mask and see my friends and my coworkers, which I
Right.
love. I miss
Right.
them. But out showing houses, you know, it's other than taking precautions, I'm out.
Right.
So it's a good job.
Out doing your thing for sure.
Yep. Yep. Nan, I've got the gift bags for you, the 100 of them.
Perfect.
So
Yeah, the numbers increase. So that's, we're up to 90, 92 or 93. So that's perfect.
okay,
Okay.
we'll connect. I'll get them to you tomorrow.
All right. Sounds good.
hello, hello.
Hi, Judy.
Hello.
Hey, Judy.
Hey, hi. I hope, forgive my hat, but it was a gardening day, so it's best that I have a hat on.
I've had plenty of hat days.
We'll wait
Hi, Bob.
just a
Bob,
few
can you
minutes
hear
while
me?
everybody gets logged in and situated here. Call the meeting to order here shortly. We do have a quorum of the EDA present. We may have a couple others joining here in a few minutes, but I will call this meeting to order. It is just after 5:30. Karen, could we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Blake Roberts. Judy Huntosh,
Here.
Sam Husnick. Mark Finneman,
Here.
Jennifer Lorge,
Here,
Leif Erikson,
Here.
and President Bain.
Here. I'd like to invite everybody to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dan will show his screen with the flag. And if you'd like to stand and rise, cut your camera, you can do so in the bottom left-hand tray of your Zoom. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members of the EDA, we do have an agenda before you this evening. I will entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. And Karen, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Judy Huntosh,
Aye.
Sam Husnick,
Aye.
Mark Finneman,
Aye.
Jennifer Lorge,
Aye.
Leif Erikson,
Aye.
President Bain.
Aye, agenda's approved. Our next item this evening is to approve the EDA meeting minutes from our August 10th meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve or any changes.
So move for approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Blake Roberts. Judy
Blake,
Huntosh,
you might be on mute.
Aye.
Yeah. Sam Husnick,
Aye.
Mark Finneman,
Abstain.
Jennifer Lorge,
Aye.
Leif Erikson,
Aye.
President Bain.
Aye, minutes approved. Next item this evening is to approve the meeting minutes from the last downtown committee workshop. I will entertain any changes or a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, and another roll call vote, please.
Blake Roberts,
Aye.
Judy Huntosh,
Aye.
Sam Husnick,
Aye.
Mark Finneman,
Aye.
Jennifer Lorge,
Abstain.
Leif Erikson,
Aye.
and President Bain.
Aye, minutes are approved. Next item on our agenda this evening is the Forest Lake CARES Act Business Grant Policy Draft. Dan, I believe you're going to walk us through this.
I am. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Great.
Perfect. So no mic issues this time around, which is good. Yeah, I'm here to present to you tonight just an overview of the CARES Act Business Grant Program. This is still draft policy, looking for some feedback on the policy as presented tonight. This is also on the City Council agenda for their review as well, so it'll be both before the EDA and Council during tonight's meetings. But wanted to start out with, I have a brief presentation that just kind of walks through the high points of the policy as presented. So make sure I get this to work here. Basically, the goals of tonight's discussion is I'm going to walk through the program details and then go through just to review the application process. So what a business owner will see when they apply for this program, go over the timeline, and then at the end of that, we'll open it up for feedback and discussion of the program as presented tonight. Just for a little bit of background, the CARES Act Business Grant Program, the CARES Act does authorize the issuance of business assistance grants. The funding for this program will come from the city's CARES Act allocation. When I developed this policy, it is modeled after other city and county programs. So this was not created out of whole cloth. I went and did a pretty exhaustive research of what other policies and programs are out there and sort of cobbled together the policy that you see in front of you tonight. And it is designed to complement other existing programs. It's not meant to be a replacement. It's more designed to be complementary to, say, the county's CARES Act grant program. So it's not a competing grant, it's a complementary grant to those programs. The grant overview, right now we are requesting $300,000 in total grant allocation is being requested for the program. Priority funding as presented in the policy is for-profit and self-employed home-based businesses. Nonprofits are eligible for the grant only after all of the self-employed and for-profit businesses applications have been considered, and applications will be considered on a first-come, first-served basis. So for a little clarity there, basically you have a bucket of money for-profit enterprises. If there's money left over after those are funded, then that would spill over to the nonprofit applications, and then those nonprofits will be funded on a first-come, first-served basis. For grant amounts, if you're a for-profit employee with an employee, you get a grant amount. You can apply for up to $15,000. For self-employed or non-employer-based home-based businesses, you can apply for up to $7,500. And nonprofits would be eligible for up to $15,000 grant under this program. Who can apply? The first criteria was that you need to be in business as of January 1st, 2020. The reason why January 1st was selected is that allows us to get a snapshot of what operations of the business look like pre-COVID. So you have January, February, and March of what would be considered normal operations before the pandemic really took hold. So that January 1st is the shortest amount of time period we feel comfortable with making sure that we can get a benchmark of where operations were in a pre-COVID environment. If you're an employer-based business, you need to have at least one, but no more than 50 FTE, full-time equivalent employee at the location address. You must have a physical address located within the city of Forest Lake. And you must be a legal entity registered with the Minnesota Secretary of State and be in good standing with the Secretary of State. And you must have earned under $5 million in annual revenue. And you must not be delinquent on taxes, bills, or charges due to the city from February 1st, 2020 or prior. Ineligible business types, if you're a corporate chain or a multi-state chain, you would not be eligible for this grant. However, if you're a local franchisee of a corporate chain or multi-state chain, you would be eligible. So again, trying to make that keep that money as local as possible. If you were in default prior to February 29th of 2020, you would not be eligible for this program. If you derive income from gambling, or if you primarily sell pawned merchandise or guns, those businesses would not be eligible as well. Or if you derive most of your income from passive investments, say real estate transactions, property rentals, or property management, billboards or lobbying, those business types would be ineligible for this grant as well. On the nonprofit side, you'd be eligible if you're in business or in operation as of January 1st, 2020. be registered either as either a 501c3, 501c6, or 501c19 organization. This allows for veterans organizations, business organizations, and your traditional 501c3 organizations to apply for this grant. So it's a little bit expanded of a nonprofit role for this grant. You need to have no more than 50 FTE employees at the location. Again, physical address within the city of Forest Lake. Register with the Secretary of State, be in good standing, and not be delinquent on past due charges due to the city as of February 1st, 2020. Overarching all of that eligibility criteria is the business or nonprofits need to demonstrate an impact due to COVID-19. Again, pretty easy way to determine if you were impacted by COVID-19 is that if your business was shut down due to governor's orders, if you remember back in March when most businesses deemed non-essential were ordered to shut down, that would qualify for eligibility based on this grant application. You also would need to show a year-over-year revenue reduction. So you could take a look at what are your year-over-year revenues, say through August, and if you can show a reduction from 20 versus 19, that would qualify you for this grant program. If you're a relatively newer business and may not have a full year-over-year revenue chart, monthly revenue reduction since COVID-19 would also qualify. So say you take your January, February, and January, February, early March, show your revenues there, and then you can show the reduction since COVID-19. That would also make this the business eligible for the grant. What can the money be used for? So if you apply for the grant, the intent of this grant is to supply businesses with working capital. That capital can be used for operating expenses, such as rent payments, mortgage payments, utilities, with the exception of we would not allow this money to be used to pay property taxes or municipal utility bills, such as your sewer or water bill. You could pay, however, like say a gas bill or an electric bill. But if it's municipal or a property tax payment, those expenses would not be eligible under this grant. You could also pay fixed debt or payroll costs, account payables, or inventory costs are also all eligible expenses. If you have reopening expenses, so say you needed to purchase PPE, go through a facility cleaning, redesign your workspace to make social distancing requirements, those expenses would be reimbursable through this grant program. And same thing if you needed technology or capital expenses, marketing tools or assistance. That is on the for-profit, that is removed on the nonprofit side for the reason of you don't want to get in the habit or you wouldn't want to use technology or marketing expenses to promote a certain religious organization. So that's why those expenses were not in the nonprofit side. So they'd be eligible on the for-profit side, but not the nonprofit side. So you would not allow them to do, nonprofits can't use marketing tools or assistance as a qualified expense. How to apply, the way this is currently being developed is this actually is going to be done through a city application portal. I will share that screen here. I have a draft of what this will look like here. The intent of the application portal, this actually will kind of give it will initially perform the review of applications basically for a go or no-go status. So if they're, as a business fills up this application, if they're not located within the city of Forest Lake, if they're a nonprofit that doesn't fall under one of the existing categories, this system would deem them as not approved and would send an email out saying your grant application doesn't meet the qualifications of the grant due to the fact that, and it would list out outside of city of Forest Lake or not a approved nonprofit status or something to that effect. So this grant application is basically going to kind of take that initial review of application using some logic that I'm going to apply to the processing of this form. So the business will land here. The grant overview form, it'll show just a little bit of the information on the actual grant application. They'll then go through here and read eligibility details for both the business and the nonprofit. This page here, when you actually get to the actual application, the applicant will not see all of these forms. What'll happen is that based on, if you click here and say self-employed, no employees, only the questions relevant to that application status will show up. So for here example, if I were to click on when this form is done, employed, no employees, this type of nonprofit organization will not show up. You click on nonprofit, that will show up. So these are all the questions which have been taken for the form for the business information. And then the grant information here, it's just an additional information on, grant. The business will fill this out and then sign it and submit it to myself to begin the review process. They'll also have to, throughout this process, after that initial application is done, they'll have to provide all of the follow-up documentation. So they just can't apply for the grant and assume that's all the paperwork they need to fill out. They will also have to supply the requirements, the financial documents that we need to prove that the expenses were made, that the revenues were lost, just so we have each grant application in the event that the city does get audited. We do have that collection of paperwork that shows that these were reviewed, that these were eligible expenses based on the grant criteria that is before you. All of that paperwork will be assembled prior to the final approval of the grant. Let me switch back here just to my presentation. So here's the timeline, and I realize this is a pretty accelerated timeline. Reason being is that the city has until November 15th to get all of our expenses for the CARES Act spent, or all that money allocated. So we are under a fairly aggressive timeline for this. The way this is currently set up is on Wednesday, which is September 16th, the application period will open. It'll be open for 2 weeks, when that will have it closed on September 30th. That begins a 1-week application review process where we'll go through, make sure all the documentation is there. Just want to put a quick reference on this October 1st to October 9th. The review process will also actually start to happen as applications come in. I'm not going to hold them all until that first week of October. It's going to be more on a rolling basis, but that week after they close, we'll make sure all of the remaining applications do get reviewed in that week. They'll all get buttoned up back for EDA approval on October 12th, and then on October 26th, the grant funding will be released, assuming that we have signed grant documentation from both the EDA and the business owner. So paperwork dependent, they'll have their grant funds after the 26th. And the reason why the 26th is there, that tracks with the city's issuance of checks. At the meeting night, we'll have a check run that is done on the 26th, and those business grants will be in and released as part of the October 26th check run. That's the high level of what the CARES Act grant program looks like to date. The discussion points, kind of to start the discussion, is looking at this from, is the EDA comfortable with those grant amounts? Do you want adjustments made to that? Also on the nonprofit funding, right now it's a second tier after for-profit. The nonprofits are able to be funded on a first come, first serve. Is the EDA okay with using that methodology, or would you want to shift that back to some other type of way to rank the nonprofit applications? And then just overall, any questions or concerns on timeline? So with that, I'll just pause the presentation and open it up for discussion.
I've got a couple questions for you, Dan. One of the exclusions was moving expenses. And when I read through this, I was thinking, if somebody's downsizing to make his business manageable and has to move, why wouldn't that be considered a viable expense under this?
So are you looking at that from the prospect of, like, if you're in a bigger space in downtown and they move to a smaller location as a result of
downsizing the business, be it whatever it is, if less employees, they can't afford the rent, they found a cheaper space. Seems to me that might be an expense that should be covered to help them along.
And I think on some of that, with the way that probably was in there for some of the self-employed businesses, if you're a home-based business and you move homes, and then that, would that qualify? So I think it was easier just to put in, the moving expenses of the business as a non-eligible expense. And again, some of that came from other criteria that were there, so I don't have the full, scale as to what they used to determine that. But when I saw that, I looked at that as a self-employed business, I'm moving from home A to home B, as a part of this, want to make sure that those personal moving expenses were not able to be covered as a result of this.
Okay.
Can we allow it for, except for home-based businesses?
We could carve that out. Yeah, we could allow that for an employer-based one if they were, if to Commissioner Lord's point, if they were moving from a commercial space to another commercial space, you know, we could carve out an exception for that.
Okay, the other question I had was, when in the review process, who is going to be looking at the financials to find out if it's a viable company and if they've gotten grants before, so they're not duplicating the use of the grants?
At this point, I'd reached out to Tyler at Open a Business to see if they would be able to do the grant administration for us. Unfortunately, they were not able to do so. So they are absolutely just swamped with other counties and city applications. So at this point, it would be done by Forest Lake staff, primarily myself, will be going through to make sure that the criteria that the documents submitted do meet the requirements of the grant. I have had conversations with Tyler. He has offered to assist me just making sure what document types we're looking for to make sure that we don't approve a grant that does not have the proper paper backing behind it. And I'm confident that I'll be able to do that.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Dan? Dan, could you put back up on screen real quick your questions for the EDA? One was
Yep.
timeline, one was criteria, limits. Yeah, grant amounts, nonprofit funding, and timeline. Other questions? Mark, go ahead.
The timeline seems like it's a necessary one. And the rest of it, from what I've read, I have no disagreement with any of it. I like carving out that one section that Jenny talked about. Outside of that, I have no disagreement.
How are we going to go about getting this out there in a short period of time? How are we announcing this availability?
I think it's going to be, I mean, I know I've talked to Nanette and the call we had this afternoon at 3 o'clock with the businesses. They said that was one of the concerns that the local business community had about just making sure that they're aware of the program. I think it's a full court press in terms of how we get this out. It's social media channels, it's word of mouth. It's when you see people in the community that own businesses, let them know that this grant program is there. I mean, again, there are a lot of these programs out there, and I think sometimes the businesses can get overwhelmed with, I have a county option, I have a federal option, now I have a city option, which one can I apply for? At the end of the day, we wanted to design this, or I wanted to make this where it was a complementary program, where it's not like you apply for the city one, that's the only one you can apply for. However, if you have applied for a county one, I just need to know that so I can work with the county to make sure that we're not double dipping in terms of expenses. So for example, while payroll expenses are eligible on this grant, if the business applied for a PPP loan and used part of that federal dollars to cover payroll, they couldn't then use our grant money to cover payroll expenses for the same period. If they have a different payroll period, they can. So there's a lot of trying to make it as open to businesses as possible, and let them know that, you know, apply for all these programs as you can, because we don't want them to miss out on opportunities.
Mark, go ahead.
Okay. I know later when it comes down to the survey, we'll be talking about taking those businesses that are downtown and allocating responsibility to different EDA members to make contact. Would it help for us to be taking that list and divvy up the responsibility and then make contact now as soon as possible with those businesses so that they are aware they can come to the city for this particular grant program?
Yeah, it would be a great, opportunity to get it out there, quickly, especially if there are businesses out there that are in need of it. I think ahead to the red flag warning sessions, if there is a business that is in, need of cash, this is a great way for them to get it, and going out and doing the survey work earlier while we have this application period open, or at least making that initial conversation with the business owner, is a great way to make them aware of both the BR&E program and this particular grant program as well.
Okay. Well, the BRE program is later sort of toward in terms of the schedule, but if we could do both of them now, or if we could at least divvy up the names and get out there to all the businesses, telephone or otherwise email, find management or ownership and let them know that as soon as possible, these kind of grants are available. So if we could do that, I'd appreciate it. That'd be great.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm just going to say, due to my time schedule, trying to get the back end of this grant program done, I don't have a lot of free time right now, just to be between getting it set up. So if a member of the EDA wants to take the list, I'm happy to give them the list. At this point, when I look at my schedule, I'm pretty much booked out making sure I get this grant operational so I can process applications as they come in.
Can we split the list now, or can somebody initiate that? I mean, I could make suggestions. It's just going to be arbitrary. This many people for this many EDA members. And I
Yeah.
would send that out to everybody if that was a way to start it.
There is,
That's
I mean,
great.
yeah, we can divvy up the list when we go to the BRNE. We can just sort of go through, pull it up on screen and just draw lines in there, who gets to what. And I do have contact information for all those businesses. I did not include them in the BRNE memo, but I can forward all that contact information out once the list is divided up.
Okay,
I
great.
got-
Let's do that.
Two things about that. I love the idea, but remember that list is a select list of a spectrum of businesses, and some of them really don't even apply to this, like realtors. They shouldn't be going after this. And what do you do about the businesses that aren't on that list we're going after, that list of 65?
Nanette, you've got some ideas. Jump in here.
Thank you. First of all, I would respectfully, self-serving, of course, you all know that anyway, but I would self-servingly request that the nonprofits not be put at the bottom. And here's why. I will make my case. We have not been eligible for any of the other programs. And so, at least a 501c6. Okay, I'll just say that. And then as far as business, because I've been thinking ahead on this and wasn't really thinking about the loan, but I did do some research. Dan and I have been in conversation about, I talked to him about the fact that I plan to do a mailing. Well, it just so happens I know how many businesses are in Forest Lake. I already got pricing because I want to do a different mailing project. And so there are 836 businesses, and I have a quote for even doing a postcard mailing, if that would be something that would be helpful to land in the hands of every business in Forest Lake.
That'd be grand.
I think, so my only so whatever we can do to get the message out there, I do think we need to make front and center the requirements of maximum number of FTEs and revenue. Revenue is capped at $6 million a year. Is that right?
It's currently capped at $5 million a year.
5 million. So just whatever we can do to make sure that we're front and center on that. But whatever we can do to market to that eligible group for sure.
I was going to ask Nanette, is that 836, is that subcategorized at all? So we can pull out some people, like, Jennifer mentioned, realtors, they don't need to get that mailing.
That's true. I haven't purchased the list yet. And so, but yeah, definitely I can go through it and pull out groups of, for sure. And just to give you a ballpark, because I did the estimate, had them to give me a guesstimate all the way down to printing, postage, the whole 9 yards. And at that quantity for oversized mailer, it's just over $800. And I'm not proposing that that's the only method. One of the conversation, well, we circled around this a couple of times today. I think Mara and I talked about it, and Dan was on the call with our businesses today. It's just getting this information out in a variety of ways, because quite frankly, I think, folks are just focused on doing business. Those that have not been eligible in the past for various programs have been a little defeated and deflated. And so to go through the hoops and jump through the, do all the things again to not qualify. I do know that I have heard that personally multiple times. And so, so I just think that, there's definitely got to be a marketing aspect to it. And so I think all of the things, whether it's calls, mailings, our e-news, whatever we can do, because you're talking about it's coming up really, really fast, and the open period is not very long. So we definitely have to do a blitz, a marketing blitz.
At that point, I remember the nonprofits are first come, first serve, but is that true for profit as well?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, at this point, this application portal will timestamp every application that comes in. So it'll say if you apply at, first day, September 17th at 12:01, your application is timestamped. So it's easy to go back and get that timestamp. But yeah, for-profits and nonprofits would be done on a first come, first served basis.
In that case, a snail mail mailer may be irrelevant.
Well, that's to let them know about the opportunity.
Yeah,
The postcard is to get the word out there.
I
Yeah,
remember.
but if the application window opens on Wednesday, which is 48 hours from now or less than, I mean, what's the quickest a mailer could get turned around?
Not that quick.
When does it close again? I forget, Dan. What did you say?
September 30th right now on the timelines that are presented.
But what Leaf is saying is that it starts day after tomorrow. So the mailer would have to be, if it's time stamped, first come, first serve, they really need it in the hands day after tomorrow.
And I think to add some light to that too, in terms of the when the application period's open, we've typically seen, and talking to Chris and Tyler, they're not seeing like people lined up at the gates. This isn't like a sporting event where everybody rushes the gates to get the best seats. It's sort of a slow trickle as they come in. So I think there is some time to make sure that we can get it out to as many businesses as possible. Like if you look back at the first round, I believe it was somewhere around 20 applications at Washington County levels came from Forest Lake. So even though we did marketing on that as well, you had 20 applications come out of Forest Lake for that. So in talking to other cities, what I'm seeing or hearing from all these other cities as well is that they're all experience the same thing. They all sort of go in with a thought that there are going to be people just banging down the door to get their applications in. And it's almost like they have to really coax them in to get the applications in. So I do think if a snail mail or a postcard mailer was a marketing option, I think it would still, if it was able to hit mailboxes, say the beginning of the second week, as long as it's before the 30th, we'd be able to, it'd still be an effective marketing tool.
Chris, I was going to ask what you can share with us from lessons learned since Washington County actually did not fill their program with the first round and you opened up for a second round. Lessons learned on some of the feedback you've gotten on level of interest and getting word out there.
Thank you, President Bain and members. Good evening. Yeah, a couple of things I'll share with you. We did anticipate that we would get a overwhelming response and go through the $10 million allocation that the county had set aside relatively quickly, and we did not get that overwhelming response. We had just under half of the money requested. So we had 10 million designated and only about 5 million requested. So we did go and right now are currently open for a second round of funding that opened on September 10th and closes on September 24th. And as Dan mentioned earlier, we had 20 applications from Forest Lake businesses for the first round. And we've been open since Thursday on the second round and have had 3 applications. And the program parameters are almost identical to what Dan is proposing. The real difference is that you're also including nonprofits, and in the county's version, nonprofits aren't eligible. It's only the for-profit businesses that are eligible currently. And so we did find out that there were some businesses that Dan had mentioned had just been in business just shy of the 6-month requirement that we originally set aside money for. And we felt that it wasn't fair just to cut them off completely and not make them eligible. So those businesses that were, opened in December weren't eligible. Now we changed it to January 1st. And for the reason that Dan mentioned, because you do have to, by federal regulations, document that there was a loss of revenue that's COVID related. And we think that January, February, March gives us enough time to do some comparisons and some analysis. Additionally, we found out that there were some businesses that were just over the 50 employees. And so we raised that to 75. And the other thing is we had some businesses that were just over the 3.5 million in annual revenue. So we moved that up to 5 million and reopened it up again. So I think the program that Dan laid out is well thought out, and it is very similar to the county's open program right now. So I think you can anticipate that you'll get a good sample of applications. But I don't know that you're going to get overwhelmed really quickly. It seems like Dan mentioned, they'll kind of trickle in over time, over that 1 or 2 week period. Just some thoughts and some experience that we had with the first go around.
Chris, I have a question for you. Do you find, because I just find in general when I'm working with any sort of deadlines seem to make a difference. And so did you see an influx when it came to the deadline?
So our thought on that was, as Dan had mentioned, we've got a really short window to get the dollars out the door, or literally we lose them back to the federal government. So we wanted to encourage people to move quickly. And even with that 2 week window, we did okay. We got a request for $5 million, but it wasn't all of the money we had designated. So we wanted to reopen that window and go for another 2 weeks. And hopefully we'll have enough businesses apply. It's not looking like we're going to go through the full 10 million. But if there are some businesses that don't know about it after our period of applications closes, we certainly can refer them to the cities. We don't want people to not get the assistance that they need just because they didn't know about it. And so we will make referrals. And there is a good chance that if we don't spend the allocation, the county board certainly could look at a third round of funding as well, just to make sure that we do utilize those dollars if there is a need for them here in the county.
I have a question on where you can spend the funds for. Dan, I assume that the whole not being able to spend it on municipal bills or property taxes is based on something that other cities are doing. I understand that. I somewhat question a little bit of that October 15th with property taxes being due, and this is very timely and maybe would be a nice relief for some businesses who are looking at that and eyeing that date up as far as when their property taxes are due. But maybe there's something legally that's in place that it can't be.
Dan, can I help you with that one?
Yeah, you may go right ahead.
Yep. President Bain and members, that's actually built right into the federal CARES law. You can't use these dollars, these grant dollars, to pay for municipal expenses, and that including taxes and utility bills and stuff like that. So I think what the federal government was trying to say is that cities and counties don't look for this as a resource to reimburse yourself for expenses that you should be receiving. And it's not a revenue reimbursement program for the government. It's really designed for for-profit companies. So it's actually built right into the law.
A quick note of clarification, you are able to use it for non-municipal utilities, correct?
Correct. So for example, yep, Excel Energy, if you have to pay electric bill or a gas bill, those would be allowable, but you cannot use them by federal law for municipal taxes or municipal utility bills.
And just a point of clarification on the expense side too, is that, we need proof that the expense actually has been paid. I just can't get a list of, here's 20 of my potential expenses. They actually show that they have to be, through bank records or canceled checks or some level of showing that that invoice has been paid to get eligible for reimbursement. They have to show that the expense has been paid prior to reimbursement happening.
That makes sense. What other questions do we have? Feedback? I do think it's I do think it's important that we support the program. These dollars were provided to the city of Forest Lake. Just broader context for you on the process we've been through. The city of Forest Lake received about $1.5 million of CARES Act funding. We have gone through and documented all city related expenses, and we have this excess amount that we are now able to, now that the city spaces are covered, we're able to contribute to our either businesses or nonprofits within our community. And again, as the point's been made several times, it's use it or lose it for us. So whatever we don't use, we send on to Washington County, and whatever Washington County doesn't use moves on to the state. And once we've sent that money on, there's no requirement that those funds come back to Forest Lake in any way. They kind of go no strings attached up to the county, and then the county up to the state. So it is our opportunity to use it to the extent that we have need here, and I think we have need. The challenge is that those dollars have to be distributed by early November. And so we are under quite a time crunch to be able to approve a program and get the information out there, get the applications in, and get those dollars out. So
I think we should,
Sam, go ahead.
yeah, if the phone call thing really appeals to me. I mean, to get the word out, especially to restaurants, they got to be hurting the worst of any of them. And, you know, if this is a list of phone numbers that we can all sit down and start taking numbers, I have no problem with that, doing that, because we got to get this thing rolling. That's all there is to it. So the mailing is great, but it's going to be after the fact to some degree. It's still going to be before the deadline, but still, I'm just worried about everybody knowing about it. And that's going to be a problem, I think.
When it comes to the restaurants, they're pretty easy for me to communicate with because that's who I've been communicating with a lot throughout this whole. So that is an easy one. And a handful of others as well, you know, that respond quite readily to text messages and whatnot. But yeah, I do, you know, it's hard to know. The other piece is you don't know who really is in need, right? And so I think that's where it's important that everyone has the opportunity to, aside from those businesses that we know don't qualify, but I think you know, they really do need the opportunity to know that it exists. And quite frankly, you know, I don't know. I don't know how much they're reading their e-newses and emails and things of that nature. So we had the same conversation earlier today about a variety of other things. So that's why I just feel, you know, marketing is 7 touches, 7 different ways. And so the more ways that we can communicate this, and the better. And I'll do what I can to help, of course. So
all of your chamber members are knowing what's going on. I mean,
well, the information is presented to them on a weekly basis. We have these Zoom meetings. There's e-blasts about that. So again, you know, are they reading it? I don't know. I could ask a few of them here. Do you read what I said? We won't call you under the rug. Yeah.
And go ahead.
Just so I can get a sense of the summary here in terms of how we divvy up efforts. There's a lot of us would like to help somehow at this point to get the word out as fast as possible. So what I'm reading is that Nanette would somehow section off the appropriate businesses out of all of the ones that she has listed, be able to provide that list so that we could actually call the number of people who might want to volunteer to make calls, just to get the word out that here's how you find out about it and here's where you go.
And I'll just to back that up just a step. I haven't purchased the list yet, but I will. You know, it's pulled and it's ready to go. And it's not a lot. It's $175 for the list. I don't know, again, because I was talking in terms of a mailing. I'm not sure if there's contact information or like phone numbers or emails or anything like that. I do believe that you have the opportunity to choose the other parameters. And so I could get more specific with the pull, but I'll definitely check that out first thing in the morning.
would the EDA be paying for the mailings? Well, I think that would be appropriate, wouldn't you?
I think I would love the opportunity to have that be a joint venture between us and the chamber. And if the whole point of the mailing is if it is focused solely on this effort, then it should be 100% EDA if that's something that we are able to provide funding for.
That'd be my vote.
Be my vote.
Is there, are there more funds available from the city? Mara, I think at one time we spoke and it was like 450 was a number. Has that been used, or are we leaving a cushion there just for things that might come up between now and November 15th?
Yeah, Dan Petrick, I know that that's been a moving target. The original budget had about 450 left. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that was before the 300,000 that we identified for this. Yeah. So there's not a lot left as far as that goes. And
so there, Blake, to your point, if there was a option to expand program, could do that. Otherwise, there are additional items that might be coming through regular city channels as well for that remaining 450.
Yeah, that was just if we did get hit and there were a number of requests over that 300, if there was a little extra to push towards this, but.
Dan, final approval, could we go over if there is still budget within the overall city CARES program?
Yeah, at this point, I grabbed an earmark amount, and actually, I mean, if state, we do get inundated with applications, there's a lot more funding for it. I mean, obviously we would take a look at if there's funding that's left over or available, we can make an adjustment there, if it's, because again, the intent would be rather have it spent here versus having to go back to the federal government. So the 300,000, I think it's a pretty good estimate though. I think it's a pretty solid start, however, based on once the application period closes, based on what the actual number is, we do have the ability to make some small adjustments to that amount before final grants are issued and all the money is expensed.
Nanette, go ahead.
On that topic, I did have a proposal that came through and it started last week and then I got the final proposal today. So I apologize. This is just dumped on you and I didn't have the opportunity to get the information to Dan in a timely fashion, but there is another opportunity and it is for our businesses. And it was presented to me, don't mind me, I'm reading, by the small business community. And they are looking at providing coaching for businesses and for the point of recovery. And I have some program options, but it would be, they're looking to offer this to 20 of our businesses. They feel like they could handle 20 businesses. There's a cost involved and there's a couple of different ways to go about it. They have come to me and offered the chamber as well for doing admin and marketing, a percentage of 10 to 15% of the program. And so what they are asking, this has been approved in other communities and it's been approved through CARES Act money. And some of the topic matters range from hiring, projecting cash flow, creating sustainable presence, marketing presence, effective employee retention, finding best talent, things of that nature. Again, because this is all timely and I just learned of it less than a week ago, I wanted to bring it up today and see if that was something that the committee here would like to consider.
So Nan, you lost me on the ask of the EDA at this point. Is it in promotion? What's the role of the EDA?
Actually, I do believe this is great. That's a great question. So I'm bringing it to you because I don't sit on the city council, and I do believe actually in the other communities it was the city council that approved the funds. So I don't know if this is a EDA decision or a city council, but what they're looking at is then that the EDA or the city council, our entity would then provide the cost of this to up to 20 businesses. There has been conversation whether there should be a partial buy-in for the businesses. I know in some of the communities that they're offering it, they decided to fund, the city council decided to fund the entire program. Just to give you an idea, because I know Finn's going to ask me, cost-wise, they have a private coaching option that would be this is a 6-month process, right? So it's not just a short term. There's a individual coaching, which is $600 per participant. There's an online presence, which is $1,800 per participant, and coaching and online. Again, this is all laid out and I won't go through all the details with you, but I'd gladly share it. The last one is on $2,300 per participant. I think in the other agreement, they had given me like a total amount. Let me just see if I can pop that up here real quick. Really, it looks like it's changed a little bit, but the overall cost for the whole, let's just say the whole enchilada was $60,000 for the whole program with the full slot of businesses participating. I don't know if that fits the goal of the EDA or not.
Yeah, certainly. Can you forward that information on to Dan? Is there a time? I'm assuming that this is another time crunch, right? Is there a
Right. Right,
time?
because they're looking at it being funded through the EDA, through the CARES Act money as well. That it's an option for the CARES Act money.
Yeah, can you forward that to Dan and we can look at it and decide how it may fit into what we're doing? I think there's a financial aspect. There's also a practical aspect on just how many different programs are we able to support in a very short period of time.
Yep, I completely understand. And I think from what I could tell when I had the conversation, that the decision is a quick decision, but the application of the program would then be after the fact.
I had a question for Dan. Would that program fall under a reasonable thing to pay for if they applied for the 15,000 CARE grant? Could that program for their company come under that and be paid for or not?
I'd have to take a look at what the information that Nanette has before I could answer that, and would also need to make sure that if that route is chosen, that they make sure that it's expensed prior to reimbursement. So if we're getting expenses that are all of a sudden now kind of out past that November 1st, November 15th deadline, I think then you're getting into that gray area of it's not really an eligible expense. And if an auditor comes in, they're going to say you're approved an expense that hadn't happened yet. So we have to look backwards rather than forward. So we're kind of in that we don't have as much in front of us as we do behind us. And we got to start making sure that we start looking backwards to make sure that we cover what's behind us in terms of expenses.
I respectfully appreciate you entertaining this proposal, and I will send it off to you so that you can take a closer look.
Perfect, thank you. Other questions? I know we have another agenda topic this evening to talk about BR&E, and we do have a hard stop at 7 o'clock for a council meeting. Other questions related to the proposed grant program? Dan, I know this is on the council agenda for this evening. Are we looking for a vote for recommendation of support from the EDA tonight?
Correct. Yeah, we're looking for a motion to recommend approval at the council level. Since this is a federal program, I want to make sure that we get both bodies have made approvals of this to basically cover all the bases. So EDA will recommend approval. Council has the final approval. They'll be the approving body for this one. Then it'll go back to the EDA for administration after it's approved at the council level.
Thank you. Any other questions or anybody ready for a motion?
Mara, I make a
Sam,
motion
go
that
ahead.
we recommend to the city council that we approve this program to move forward, that as Dan described it.
And point of clarification, would you also include in that motion the amendment from Member Lorge on the moving expenses?
I would. Yes, I'll include that. I'll amend my motion to reflect that.
Perfect. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I would second.
A second. Any further discussion? Excellent. Good discussions. Thank you. Karen, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Blake Roberts,
Aye.
Judy Huntash,
Aye.
Sam Husnick,
Aye.
Mark Finneman,
Aye.
Jennifer Lorge,
Aye.
Leif Erikson,
Aye.
and President Bain.
Aye. And since we are on a tight timeline for this, Nanette, could you just send around to members of the EDA that contact list? And members of the EDA, let's all use our networks and all means possible to get that information out as quickly as we can.
I will.
Perfect. Thank you. Moving on to our next agenda item this evening, Dan, the BR&E program.
Correct. President, members of the EDA, tonight is the night where we are going to be officially kicking off the BR&E program. So if you recall, we started this back in June, started looking at that as, do we want to do BR&E? What's it going to look like? So we spent most of the summer kind of scoping this out. All of that work is done. We do have a program here that is ready to now be launched. this program, it is a scaled back. It's not a full BR&E program. It's more of a kind of modified version, really to try to capture what the impact of COVID is in the local business community, focusing on retention rather than expansion. There are 3 goals to this program. The first is to demonstrate support for local businesses and assist them with the challenges brought on due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The second, to proactively establish communication channels between the city of Forest Lake, the Forest Lake Chamber of Commerce, and local businesses in an effort to educate businesses on local programs. And third, to gather data to better assess factors influencing the community's economic conditions and use that data to guide future policy development. So those are the 3 goals that we discussed and settled on for this particular program. Right now, the timeline as it sits is that we will start doing the business surveys. The official BR&E surveys will go out on September 21st through November 9th is the survey period. We do have 2 red flag warning sessions scheduled, one October 12th and the second is on November 9th. And if you recall, the red flag warning sessions are as through the course of the survey work, if you see a business that's in danger of closing or has some pretty significant issues that they need assistance with, we have an opportunity to discuss those outside of the data analysis. Again, being cognizant of the fact that we don't want to publicly identify what business that is. We want to make sure that that's framed up in a way that we can look at that in the context of a larger policy discussion, but just have those opportunities to have those conversations before this project is completed. The data work or the data analysis will take place not until December 21st as is stated in my memo, but in December of this upcoming year. So December, I'll work through the data analysis portion of it, and then we'll present the results in January of 21. So that's the timeline. There was questions on how we're going to survey, what's that survey going to look like when we go out into the business community. I ended up settling on using SurveyMonkey as the tool for which to conduct our survey through. This will allow for businesses to view the questions in advance. There is a link that's included in the memo that you could forward that link over to businesses in advance of your visit or your phone call. They can see the survey questions and kind of preload their answers if they want to. But it also allows for the survey to be printed as a PDF. So if you prefer paper and want to go out with paper in hand, you can take a PDF of the document out with you and still get all the questions answered, as you jot your answers down on the PDF version of the survey. The total time that it'll take to conduct the survey, SurveyMonkey has as part of their survey work, they estimate time to completion. This one came in at approximately 7 minutes. So from start to finish, you're a little bit less than 10 minutes. So again, being cognizant of the fact that business owners are busy, they have a lot of stuff going on, a lot on their plate. We don't want to take up an hour of their time answering all these survey questions. I try to keep that down as to get the questions you wanted answered, but also be respectful of the time. So it's settled in approximately 7 minutes to complete. Obviously, that's not does not include time spent kind of introducing yourself or time spent wrapping it up, but actual survey is approximately 7 minutes. What I will do is I will now then take the survey, the business list, which you can find on page 24 of the packet. These are the 65 businesses that Nanette forwarded to me based on the conversation we had at the EDA level in August. I want to say thank you to Nanette for getting me this list. It was incredibly helpful to get the list from her for this. But these are representative of the industries that were discussed in that August meeting. We do have contact information for these as well. I will go through and assign each EDA member a section or a chunk of this list, and then you will then go out and survey these are the businesses that you are assigned to. And again, you have from September through November, so you have approximately, I can't do the math off the top of my head, but about 6 to 8 weeks to get that work completed. And if you don't hit the November 9th, you mean it's okay to spill over a little bit, but want to try to keep that November 9th as tight to that November 9th deadline as possible, so I can get the data work done in December. When you go out and survey, before you survey, I will send out full instructions on how to access the SurveyMonkey if you want to do it on a tablet or a phone, or if you want PDF copies, I will have PDF copies available to all the membership as well. If you do use a PDF copy, I will then take and we'll make sure that city staff will get those answers uploaded to SurveyMonkey, so you don't have to do the data uploads. If you do go out with, say, a tablet or a phone that's internet connected, you can do you can add the surveys live as you're with the business, and then once you're done, that survey is completed. So there are 2 options to complete that. But right now, the requested action of the EDA would be to approve the BR&E program, and then I'll get those businesses assigned and we can start doing the survey work, which would be step 1. So tonight is kind of the culmination of a lot of work getting it up to where it's at right now, but I think we have a good program to start with. Also, I am still working with Nanette on the agreement for the chamber, but since we're kind of working under a gentleman's agreement right now, I don't think there's a need for the formal agreement, but I will bring one of those back to make sure that, we do formalize the partnership between the city and the chamber, but have it operating under kind of a gentleman's agreement right now, which has been working out. I think for both parties, I think Nanette would probably agree to that statement as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or, next steps, anything like that, if ED has any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Wait, go ahead.
Yeah, just question about sending that survey link out to the businesses in advance. Is there anything stopping them from completing that survey even prior to us reaching out?
No, if they want to do it themselves in advance of the survey visit, they can do that. That is the one. I honestly tried to find a mechanism where they could see the questions before but weren't able to answer them. But if they preload their survey, they can definitely do that. But if they go that direction, that kind of eliminates the one-on-one contact, which is part of the driver of this BR&E. You really want to start to establish those connections, which is one of the goals. So while they could preload the survey, it's still worth a follow-up phone call to see if they have any questions or kind of have that one-on-one call with them after the fact.
Would there be a way for us to find out in some rhythm of if there are businesses that have completed it, so that, if we're just doing follow-up calls, thanking them for completing it versus, hey, did you complete it type thing?
Yeah, if you want to reach out, the collector that I have through SurveyMonkey will track who's filled it out. So if you want to check in with me prior to making your calls for the week and say, has any of my businesses filled out the survey? Happy to send an email out letting you know which ones have, which ones haven't. So yeah, we can identify who has filled out the survey online in advance of your calls.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions of Dan?
Dan, would anyone be opposed? I mean, are there certain lists or businesses here that some of us may already have some type of contact with that might make that introduction a little easier, or do we want to just make that more organic and try to meet more businesses and reach out to?
I got to interject here because that's a perfect reminder. I don't think I should be doing any of the realtors because they don't want to share their financial hardships with me. I'm a competitor. So when we're assigning those, I think we should not have any competitors on our list.
Agree. I think also when making those assignments, certainly we can take a best stab, but if you're seeing individuals on your list that should not be, we can do some trading.
And if we are open, I would, I could, for example, my situation, I could email Dan the ones that I would do most likely that know or have some connection to. And if someone else wants that, that's fine too, but maybe just, that might help Dan divvy things up a little.
I would agree. Dan, is that helpful if EDA members send you kind of lists of where there's contacts or kind of suggestions based on relationships?
Yeah, that would be helpful if you know of businesses that you want to survey or ones that you don't. For obviously for Jenny, I will not put realtors on her list. Yeah, email those to me. I will work on getting those to make sure. I will do the best I can to make sure that if the requested businesses are on your list. And like you said, if you see your list and all of a sudden you realize there's somebody on there you don't want to survey, you just feel free to send me an email. I can get those reassigned. So I will be flexible with who gets what. And if for some reason you're feeling ambitious and you want to take more, let me know. I'm happy to give, we'll give you a longer list if you want to, but want to make sure that, I'm respectful of your time as well. I'm not going to give everybody 30 of these to do because, it'd be a full-time job just doing surveys at that point.
One of the things, Dan, I'll just mention too, which I talked to Dan about, but what I did is I went through and I chose I chose people, like I know people at pretty much every one of these places and felt that they would respond favorably to you based on my experience with them. So that's how I chose, you know, between one place or the other, was based on the fact that they are responsive to the other kinds of things. And so, so if you do, you know, if you do call somebody or reach out to them and it's not, you know, like now I could go right down the list and tell you all their names. But if you're finding that you're having some difficulty maybe making a connection, then just say, hey, Nanette from the chamber, really thought that you would be willing to share your information to help us out. Because like I said, most of them interact with us here at the chamber on a fairly regular basis. So hopefully that's good.
Agree. I do think an important component of this is the ongoing partnership with the chamber. And so I'm happy to keep this moving along. Also excited to see that agreement come through. It's an opportunity for us to provide some additional financial assistance to the chamber. So for some of the work that you are providing to this process. And so look forward to seeing that in a future agreement. Any further questions of Dan? Dan, you are looking for approval tonight of the BRNE plan, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Then I will just mark in time when the program was approved, and we can get that in for the archives.
Any further questions or anybody want a motion tonight?
I would move to approve.
There's
I'll
a
second.
motion. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this program?
I'll second.
Excellent. We got a motion and a second. And Karen, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Blake Roberts,
Aye.
Hantosh,
Aye.
Sam Husnick,
Aye.
Mark Finneman,
Aye.
Jennifer Lorge,
Aye.
Leif Erikson,
Aye.
and President Bain.
Aye. Motion approved. All right, next item on the agenda this evening is the Washington County update, and Chris did have to drop off. He made reference of this tonight and also wanted to reference it during this section, though, that their second round of CARES Act funding at the county level, that grant program is currently open and is open until September 24th at 4:30 p.m. And there is information available on website for application materials and what the eligibility requirements are. So just wanted to make that note as well.
And can I ask just a clarification? Maybe I missed it earlier. So if someone has already or applied with the county and is waiting or not, can they also apply with the city? Or are we trying to avoid the double dipping on this?
They'd be able to apply with the city's grant. We just would not be able to double dip on what the expenses. So if your bucket of expenses is all, say, for utilities at the county level, but you want to use city money for inventory, that would be their compatible uses. You just couldn't do utilities and utilities. As long as we're not paying for the same thing, yes, you can apply for both the grant opportunities.
Thanks.
Good clarification. Next item this evening, Chamber of Commerce update. Nanette, anything else for us this evening?
I do have a few things that I just want to make mention of. We did distribute almost all of the 20,000 masks to local businesses. We did 2 different distributions with 2 days each. Thank you to Blake. He allowed us to camp out at Lakes Floral and do our mask pickup there. So that's done. We did have our golf tournament, which was fantastic. It was like a real, real live normal day out on the golf course, all outside. So that was fantastic. Right now we're in the process. Some of you are aware that we do Business Education Day. We've been doing this. This is our 42nd year. So I really wanted to try to figure out a way to support our new teachers to the area. We have between Forest Lake area schools and Leela, we have 92 or 93 new teachers. And so I worked with the schools to come up with a COVID adapted program, which will be gift a gift package for each teacher. And so we're in the process of gathering sponsors and information and putting that all together. The good thing about it is because there's no face-to-face event, we can do those drops to the schools when we're ready. So that's one of the projects that I'm in the middle of. We are looking to start to do a little bit more. We have been for the last few months doing a little bit more face-to-face, small groups, and just giving our business folks the opportunity to interact and be face-to-face if they so choose. And that is going over quite well. And then the rest of focus has really been around business recovery. Again, you know, even though Dan thinks maybe I'm a little pokey here on getting him the information, it's just been a process, right? And so business recovery really is front and center for the chamber as far as helping our businesses, getting this grant information to them, you know, getting them information and training and whatever we can to help support them. And so that will be the theme, I think, that all of us will be carrying through for quite some time. And then in conjunction with that, next Tuesday, we have a webinar called Break Out from Lockdown. And again, it's a lot around our mindset. And so that's going to be 11 o'clock next Tuesday. And again, it's no cost. Anyone and everyone is welcome to join in on that as well. And that's what we've been doing. So
That's great. Thank you. Any questions for Nanette this evening? All right, that is the end of our planned agenda tonight. We talked about a lot, so thank you for the great discussion this evening. Look forward to carrying that message on to City Council. Dan, go ahead.
I have one final update. I got an email from Judy about the public art discussion that we had at the downtown committee. I told her I'd give a verbal update at where it was during the meeting tonight. Want to let the EDA know that work has been done on it. I have met with Dave, talked about possible locations to place the sculpture. The policy discussion, the Parks, Lakes, and Trails Committee will be discussing the public art policy. That was scheduled for their meeting this week. I believe that meeting got canceled. So on a future agenda, they will start having a conversation as to what do monuments look like within the city, what does public art look like, but also realizing that there's a potential sculpture here and that policy might not be ready. Didn't want to tie this particular sculpture with the policy, so kind of decoupled that. And I'm still looking at this particular sculpture that was discussed during the downtown committee, but just have not had a chance to finalize everything on that discussion point. With the CARES Act policy development, I've been kind of busy on that side of it, but have continued to work on public art. Just wanted to give the EDA an update that still in process, but not finalized as of yet.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you. Any further discussion, questions this evening? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Karen, could we have a roll call, please?
Blake Roberts,
Aye.
Judy Huntosh,
Aye.
Sam Husnick,
Aye.
Mark Finneman,
Aye.
Jennifer Large,
Aye.
Leif Erikson,
Aye.
and President Bain.
Aye. And we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank
Good night.
you.